My name is Aloan Vale. I'm 33 years old, a literature teacher from the rainy edges of Portland. And 3 weeks ago, I woke up in a hospital bed unable to move, unable to speak, unable to do anything except listen. And what I heard, what I was forced to hear, would fracture the last remaining pieces of the life I thought I had. Because while my body lay motionless, my mind was trapped inside, fully conscious, screaming silently as the two people I trusted least in this world spoke about me as if I were already dead. And what my husband said, what he whispered with his hand resting casually on the railing of my hospital bed, still echoes in my skull like a curse I can't tear out. "When she's gone, everything is ours," he murmured. Ours. As if I were an obstacle, as if my death were a solution. As if my entire existence could be reduced to a number printed neatly on an insurance payout form. But before I get into that, before I drag you into the nightmare I've been living inside, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Drop your country and what time you're watching in the comments below, because this story spirals into madness so quickly you won't have time to breathe. And I want to know exactly where my audience is while I tell you how close I came to disappearing forever. Because trust me, this only gets worse. Much, much worse. I didn't even know where I was at first. When consciousness returned, it was slow and sticky, like someone pulling me out of thick mud. Sound arrived before anything else. A beeping monitor, the low hum of air vents, a distant conversation happening just outside the door. I tried to move my arm and nothing happened. I tried to swallow. Nothing. I tried to scream, but my throat might as well have been filled with cement. Panic clawed up my spine, but even the panic couldn't escape my body. I was a statue with a pulse, a mind trapped behind flesh that refused to obey. I had no memory of what happened. I didn't remember the crash yet. I didn't remember the cold screech of metal or the way the world tilted sideways around me. All I knew was that I was awake inside myself and no one knew I was there. The door opened. Footsteps approached, and then his voice. Caspian Ward, my husband, the man I thought I would grow old with, the man who had held my hair while I threw up from the flu last winter and who told me he loved me every morning, as predictable as sunrise. He stood beside my bed and let out a long sigh. "Still nothing," he muttered. "She's not coming back." There was no grief in his voice, no fear, no tremor, just inconvenience. And then another voice, soft and honey-sweet, one I recognized too well even though I hadn't heard it in months. Maris Rylan, his co-worker, his friend. The woman he promised meant nothing. The woman I found a message from on his phone 5 months before the crash. He'd sworn it was over. He'd sworn I had nothing to worry about. He was lying then. I didn't know he was lying now, too. Worse than lying. Much worse. Maris stepped closer, her shoes clicking lightly against the floor. "How long until the doctor signs off?" she whispered. "They said they'll reevaluate her brain activity in a week," Caspian replied. "If there's no improvement, then—" He let the rest of the sentence trail off. Then he could make the decision. Then he could end it. Then he could free himself. And then he said the line that would burn itself into me. "When she's gone, everything is ours. Ours." As if my death belonged to them. As if my life was a vault they were waiting to pry open. I tried to scream at him, tried to force my fingers to twitch, my eyes to blink, anything to show I was there, but nothing happened. My body betrayed me. Maris giggled, an actual giggle, and leaned closer to him. "It'll all be clean," she whispered. "No divorce lawyers, no scandal, and we can just start over." "Exactly," he murmured. "Just a little more patience." They spoke about me like I was furniture, like I was a broken lamp waiting to be thrown out. They stayed for 10 minutes, maybe 15, talking about a new loft apartment they wanted to lease, what color they wanted the bedroom walls to be, where they might travel this summer, all with my unconscious body lying between them like an exhibit of their cruelty. I listened. I absorbed. I drowned. When they finally left the room, the silence that followed felt heavier than their presence. I didn't know yet that I had locked-in syndrome. I didn't know yet that my mind was fully functional while my body was a prison. I only knew terror, the purest, coldest kind. Hours passed before a nurse came in, humming softly under her breath, gently adjusting tubes and checking machines. Her name tag came into view from the corner of my peripheral vision. Nurse Lyora Hale. She spoke softly, kindly, as if I were still a person. "Good morning, Elowen," she whispered, as she wiped my forehead with a warm cloth. "I'm here. You're safe." Safe. The word almost made me laugh if I'd been able, because I wasn't safe, not from the man who promised to love me, and definitely not from the woman standing beside him, dreaming about how to decorate the apartment they'd share after my funeral. It was only later, much later, that Nurse Leora noticed something no one else had. A tear sliding from the corner of my eye, and that single tear would change everything. But before that moment arrived, I remained trapped, listening, waiting, hoping someone, anyone, would see that I was still here, that I wasn't gone, that nothing was theirs. So let me take you back to the beginning. My life before that hospital bed, before the accident, before I knew the truth about the man I'd been married to for 8 years, Marcus Chen. God, even saying his name now makes my stomach turn. But back then, I thought he hung the moon. We met in college. I was studying education. He was in business school. Marcus was charming, ambitious, driven. He had these big dreams of becoming a successful real estate developer, and honestly, he achieved them. By the time we'd been married 5 years, Marcus had built his own commercial real estate company from the ground up. We had the beautiful Craftsman House in the Pearl District. We took vacations to Hawaii and Europe. We talked about starting a family. I thought I knew this man. I thought I knew everything about him. I was teaching American literature at Lincoln High School, and I loved my job, loved my students, loved coming home every day to what I thought was a happy marriage. Marcus would tell me about his deals, his clients, his projects. I'd tell him about my students' essays and the school drama. We had date nights every Friday. We had inside jokes. We had a life together. Or at least I thought we did. About a year ago, Marcus hired a new assistant, Kelly Morrison. She was 26, blonde, gorgeous, and according to Marcus, incredibly efficient. He talked about her constantly. Kelly organized the Jenkins file perfectly. Kelly saved us thousands on the waterfront project. Kelly is working late with me tonight on the proposal. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I trusted my husband. I trusted that our 8 years of marriage meant something. How naive I was. Kelly started showing up everywhere. Company dinners where spouses were invited, Kelly was there. Marcus's birthday party that I threw for him. Kelly stayed until midnight helping clean up. When I'd bring Marcus lunch at his office, Kelly would be in there with him, sitting close. Laughing at his jokes, my friends started making comments. My sister asked me point blank if I was worried about her. And you know what I said? I said, "Marcus loves me. He would never cheat. I trust him completely." God, I was such a fool. Things started changing around 6 months ago. Marcus became distant. He was always on his phone, always texting, always taking calls in the other room. Our Friday date nights got canceled more and more often. He stopped touching me the way he used to, stopped looking at me the way he used to. When I tried to talk to him about it, he'd say he was stressed about work, that a big deal was coming together, that once it closed, everything would go back to normal. I wanted to believe him so badly. I wanted to believe that our marriage wasn't falling apart, that the man I loved wasn't slipping away from me, so I pushed down my suspicions. I ignored the sick feeling in my stomach when he'd smile at his phone screen. I pretended not to notice when he started going to the gym more and buying new clothes. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was being insecure, that everything was fine. But deep down, I knew some part of me knew that my marriage was a lie. I just didn't want to face it. Then came the night that changed everything. October 15th. I'll never forget that date. I was driving home from a parent-teacher conference that ran late. It was raining. Typical Portland October weather. I was on Highway 26 heading west toward home. The road was slick. Visibility was poor, but I'd driven that route 1,000 times. I knew it like the back of my hand. I was going about 55 miles per hour, staying in the right lane, being careful. And then I needed to slow down for traffic ahead of me. I pressed the brake pedal. Nothing happened. I pressed harder. Still nothing. My brakes were completely gone. The panic that shot through me in that moment, I can't even describe it. I pumped the brakes frantically. Nothing. I tried to downshift, but I was going too fast. There was a semi-truck in front of me, brake lights glowing red through the rain. I was going to hit it. I yanked the steering wheel to the right, trying to get to the shoulder, but I overcorrected on the wet road. My car spun out. I remember the sickening feeling of losing control, the world spinning around me, the sound of my own screaming, and then the impact. My car slammed into the concrete barrier at 55 miles per hour. The airbags deployed. but it wasn't enough. The driver's side of my car crumpled like paper. After that, everything went black. The next thing I remember is waking up. But waking up isn't the right term. I became aware. That's more accurate. I became aware that I existed, that I was somewhere, that something had happened to me, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even open my eyes at first. I could hear machines beeping, could hear voices around me, could feel something in my throat making it hard to breathe, but I couldn't do anything about it. Terror doesn't even begin to describe what I felt. Imagine being conscious but trapped inside your own body, unable to scream, unable to call for help, unable to even let anyone know you're aware. It's a special kind of hell that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Well, maybe on my worst enemy. Maybe on Marcus and Kelly. I found out later that I'd been in a coma for 3 days after the accident. Multiple broken ribs, collapsed lungs, severe head trauma, fractured pelvis, internal bleeding. The doctors had to do emergency surgery just to keep me alive. When I finally regained consciousness, I had what's called locked-in syndrome, a rare neurological condition where you're fully conscious and aware, but almost completely paralyzed. You can't move, can't speak, can't even blink sometimes, but your mind is completely intact. You can hear everything, understand everything, feel everything. The doctors didn't know I was conscious. They thought I was in a vegetative state. They talked about me like I wasn't there. Discussed my prognosis in clinical terms while standing right next to my bed. Minimal brain activity, unlikely to regain consciousness. If she does wake up, severe brain damage is probable. Quality of life would be severely compromised. And Marcus played the devastated husband perfectly. He was at my bedside constantly those first few days, or so the nurses told me later, holding my hand, talking to me, crying, telling me how much he loved me, how he couldn't lose me, how I had to fight to come back to him. What a performance. He should have won an Oscar. It was on the 4th day that I first heard her voice, Kelly, in my hospital room with my husband. "How is she?" Kelly asked, her voice soft, concerned, playing the worried employee, I suppose. "No change," Marcus said, and I could hear the strain in his voice, but not the strain of grief, the strain of impatience. "I'm so sorry, Marcus," Kelly said. "This must be so hard for you." There was a pause, and then I felt it. The pressure on my bed shifting, someone sitting down next to me, and then Marcus's voice closer now, closer to her. "I know this sounds terrible," he said quietly, "but part of me wonders if it would be better if she just didn't wake up. My heart would have stopped if it wasn't already hooked up to machines. Did I hear that right? Did my husband just say he wished I wouldn't wake up?" "Don't say that," Kelly whispered. But there was something in her voice, something that wasn't quite convincing. "I mean, look at her," Marcus continued. "Even if she does wake up, the doctor said she'd have severe brain damage. She wouldn't be Sarah anymore. She'd need round-the-clock care. It would be cruel to keep her alive like that." I wanted to scream. I wanted to thrash in the bed. I wanted to grab him by the throat and make him look at me and see that I was still here, still me, still alive and aware. But I couldn't move a single muscle. I was trapped listening to my husband discuss why it would be better if I died. "When do you think?" Kelly started, then stopped. "When do I think what?" Marcus asked. Another pause. Then Kelly's voice even quieter. "When do you think they'll let you make the decision about life support?" Oh God. Oh God. They were talking about pulling my plug, about killing me. My own husband and his mistress were standing over my bed discussing ending my life. The doctor said if there's no improvement in 2 weeks, they'll talk to me about options. Marcus said they'll probably recommend moving her to a long-term care facility, but I have medical power of attorney. I can make the decision to let her go peacefully. That must be such a burden for you, Kelly said. And I could hear her moving closer to him, having to make that kind of decision. "It is," Marcus said, "but I think Sarah would want me to let her go if there was no hope. She wouldn't want to live like this. She'd want me to move on, to be happy again." Tears were running down my face. I couldn't feel them, couldn't wipe them away. But later, a nurse told me my pillow was soaked. My body was crying even though I couldn't control it, couldn't express the anguish and betrayal that was ripping through my chest. "You deserve to be happy," Kelly whispered. "You've been through so much." And then I heard it, the sound that confirmed everything. The sound of them kissing right there in my hospital room while I lay paralyzed in the bed not 5 feet away from them. They were kissing. And I could hear the soft sounds of it, and I wanted to vomit. I wanted to die. I wanted to do anything but lie there and listen to my husband kissing another woman while discussing my death. They stayed for another 10 minutes talking in low voices about mundane things, about his meetings the next day, about a client dinner, about how he should probably go home and get some rest. They kissed again before leaving, and then I was alone with the machines and the horror of what I'd just learned. That night was the longest of my life. I lay there in the dark, unable to sleep, unable to escape my own thoughts. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of my life given to a man who was now planning my funeral while having an affair. How long had it been going on? How long had he been lying to me? Did he ever love me at all? Or was I always just a convenience, a placeholder until something better came along? And the accident, the brakes failing, was it really just an accident or was it something more? The thought kept creeping into my mind even though I tried to push it away. Marcus was a successful businessman, not a murderer, right? But then again, I thought he was a faithful husband. And look how wrong I was about that. Over the next few days, Marcus and Kelly came to visit regularly, always together, always playing their parts. When nurses were around, Kelly the concerned assistant, Marcus the devoted husband. But when they thought they were alone, when they thought I couldn't hear them, they let their masks slip. I learned so much about their affair in those visits. They'd been sleeping together for 8 months. It started at a conference in Seattle. Kelly had been drunk. Marcus had been stressed about a failing deal, and one thing led to another. After that, they couldn't stop. Secret meetings during lunch breaks, weekends away when Marcus told me he was at business conferences, late nights at the office that were actually late nights at Kelly's apartment. "I can't wait until we can be together publicly," Kelly said one afternoon. "I'm so tired of sneaking around soon," Marcus promised her. "Just a little longer once everything is settled." Settled. That's what he called my death. Getting things settled. They talked about their plans, about how Marcus would sell our house. The house I'd loved, the house where we'd planned to raise children and buy a condo downtown, about how they'd travel to Bali for a month, somewhere we'd always talked about going together, about how Kelly would finally get to wear all my jewelry, the pieces Marcus had given me over the years for birthdays and anniversaries. "Did you bring the necklace?" Kelly asked one day, her voice eager. "Yeah, it's in my jacket," Marcus said. "I heard rustling. Try it on." "Oh, Marcus, it's beautiful," Kelly breathed. "The diamonds are even bigger than they looked in the photos you showed me. That necklace, the diamond pendant he'd given me for our 5th anniversary, he'd told me he'd saved for months to buy it, had it custom-made, told me it was a symbol of his eternal love for me. And now he was giving it to his mistress while I lay paralyzed in a hospital bed. The rage I felt in that moment was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It burned through me like acid. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to watch him suffer the way he was making me suffer, but all I could do was lie there and take it, absorb every cruel word, every casual dismissal of our life together, every excited plan they made for their future. My future built on my grave. It was on the 8th day after I woke up that things got worse, so much worse. Marcus and Kelly came in later than usual that evening. The nurse had just left after checking my vitals. I heard the door close and their footsteps approaching my bed. "How was the meeting with the lawyer?" Kelly asked. "Good," Marcus said. "Really good, actually. I wanted to review everything with you." "Of course, baby," Kelly said. I heard her settle into the chair next to my bed. "Tell me everything." "So, the life insurance policy is $2 million, Marcus began, his voice businesslike, as if he were discussing a real estate deal instead of my death. "It pays out for accidental death," which this was. No issues there. $2 million. I didn't even know he'd taken out that large a policy on me. When had he done that? "The house is worth about $1.2 million in the current market," Marcus continued. "It's in both our names, but with her dead, it all comes to me. No mortgage, so that's pure equity. Her retirement account has about 300,000 inches. Her life insurance through the school district is another 500,000. All told, we're looking at about $4 million. He said we, as if Kelly had any right to my money, to the life insurance policy that was supposed to protect our family, to the house I'd spent years turning into a home, to my retirement savings that I'd accumulated through 15 years of teaching. "Oh my God," Kelly whispered. "Marcus, that's incredible." "I know," Marcus said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, the satisfaction. We'll be set for life. We can buy that condo in the Pearl District you loved, travel wherever we want. You can quit working if you want to. We'll have everything we've ever dreamed of." "When do you think the insurance will pay out?" Kelly asked. "The lawyer said once she's declared dead or I make the decision to withdraw life support, it should be about 30 days for processing." Marcus explained. "The house will take a bit longer to sell, but I can put it on the market immediately. Maybe stage it as a sad widower who needs a fresh start. That'll help it sell faster." They both laughed at that. Actually laughed at the idea of Marcus playing the grieving widower to sell our home faster. The home where we'd had Christmas mornings and dinner parties with friends. The home where I'd planted a garden every spring. The home where I dreamed of bringing our babies home from the hospital someday. "I've already been looking at condos," Kelly said. "There's this amazing penthouse with Florida-to-ceiling windows and a rooftop terrace, 2 bedrooms, 3 baths. It's $2.5 million, but with the insurance money, we can afford it easily." Marcus finished. "Send me the listing. We'll go look at it next week." Next week? While I was still alive, still lying here listening to them. They were planning their life together while I was still breathing. "What about the funeral?" Kelly asked. "Have you thought about that?" The lawyer helped me start planning it. "Actually," Marcus said, "I'm thinking something small, intimate. Just close family and friends. We'll do it at that nice funeral home in Lake Otsego, the one with the gardens." "Will you do a burial or cremation?" Kelly asked. "Cremation," Marcus said immediately. "Burial plots are expensive, and honestly, I don't want a place I have to visit and pretend to grieve at. Plus, her family can't make a big shrine out of a cremation urn." My family. Oh God. My family, my parents who loved Marcus like a son, my sister who'd been his friend before she was even mine. What would this do to them? How would they survive losing me and learning the truth about Marcus at the same time? "That makes sense," Kelly agreed. "What about her things, her clothes and jewelry and stuff?" "I'll donate most of the clothes." Marcus said, "Keep the jewelry for you. The furniture we can sell with the house or keep what we want for the new place. The rest I'll just get rid of. I want a fresh start. No reminders, no reminders." That's all I was to him now. A reminder to be disposed of. Not his wife. Not the woman he'd vowed to love and cherish. Just an inconvenient reminder of a life he wanted to erase. "I love you so much," Kelly said softly. "I know this is hard, but we're going to be so happy together." "I love you too," Marcus replied. "And honestly, part of me is relieved. I was going to have to divorce her eventually. And this way is so much cleaner. No splitting assets, no alimony, no drama. The accident was almost convenient. Convenient. He called my accident convenient, the accident that left me paralyzed and trapped in my own body. The accident that shattered my pelvis and broke my ribs and collapsed my lung. Convenient. And then Kelly said the words that changed everything. The words that confirmed my darkest suspicions. The words that turned this from a tragedy into a crime. "Did you cut her bra lines like you planned?" Kelly asked, her voice curious. "Or was the accident really just luck?" The room went silent. The only sounds were the beeping of my monitors and my own ragged breathing through the ventilator. My mind was screaming so loud I thought surely someone could hear it. He tried to kill me. Marcus tried to kill me. This wasn't an accident. He cut my brake lines. He sent me out on that rainy highway knowing my brakes would fail. He tried to murder me for insurance money and a girl half his age. "Kelly," Marcus said, his voice warning. "What?" Kelly said. "There's no one here. She can't hear us. You said yourself she's practically brain dead." "I know, but still," Marcus said. "We shouldn't talk about that." "Oh, come on," Kelly said, and I could hear her move closer to him. "You can tell me. I've been dying to know. Did you actually do it?" Another pause. A long one, and then Marcus's voice, quiet and cold. "Yeah," he said. "I did it." 2 days before the accident, I went out to her car in the middle of the night and cut the brake lines most of the way through. Weakened them enough that they'd fail under pressure, but not so much that she'd notice anything wrong right away. I knew she'd be driving home from that parent-teacher conference. Knew she'd be on the highway. It was supposed to look like an accident caused by the rain and bad road conditions. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. He really did it. He really tried to kill me. My husband, the man I'd loved, the man I'd trusted with my life. He'd crept out in the night and sabotaged my car and sent me to my death. "That's brilliant," Kelly said, admiration in her voice. "How did you know how to do it?" YouTube, Marcus said, and he actually laughed. There are tutorials for everything. I practiced on a junk car at a salvage yard first to make sure I knew what I was doing. The whole thing took maybe 20 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes was all it took for him to plan and execute my murder. 20 minutes to destroy 8 years of marriage. 20 minutes to try to end my life. Were you worried you'd get caught? Kelly asked. A little, Marcus admitted. But brake failure in the rain is pretty common, especially on older cars. And Sarah's car was a 2015, not brand new, but not old enough to raise too many questions. The police investigated it as just an accident. They didn't even check the brake lines closely because the whole front end was so destroyed. God, you're smart, Kelly purred. And brave. I don't know if I could have done it. You didn't have to, Marcus said. I did it for us, for our future, so we could be together without all the hassle of a divorce. They kissed again. I could hear them. Could hear Kelly moan softly. Could hear the rustle of clothing. And I had to lie there and listen to them celebrate my murder, my attempted murder, because I wasn't dead. I was very much alive. And now I knew the truth. The rage and pain I felt in that moment was beyond description, beyond anything I'd felt before. It was a howling, shrieking hurricane inside my chest. I wanted to tear him apart with my bare hands. I wanted to make him feel every bit of pain he'd caused me. I wanted him to know that I'd heard everything, that I knew what he'd done, that he hadn't gotten away with it. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but lie there with tears streaming down my face, drowning in the knowledge that my husband was a murderer and I was his intended victim. They stayed for another hour, making plans, discussing their future, kissing and touching while I lay 3 feet away from them. When they finally left, I was alone with my thoughts and my fury and the terrible knowledge of what Marcus had done. I had to find a way to tell someone, had to find a way to make them understand that I was still here, still conscious, still aware. But how? How could I communicate when I couldn't move or speak, when everyone thought I was in a vegetative state? The answer came the next day, and her name was Emma. Emma Rodriguez was a nurse in the ICU. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a gentle touch. She'd been taking care of me since I was moved out of intensive care, and she always talked to me while she worked. Unlike the other nurses who treated me like an object to be maintained, Emma treated me like a person. "Good morning, Sarah," she said as she came in that morning. "How are we doing today? Let's check your vitals and get you cleaned up." "Okay." She moved around the room efficiently, checking the machines, adjusting my IV, making notes on her tablet, and then she leaned close to suction the ventilator tube in my throat, a routine procedure that happened several times a day. "This might be a little uncomfortable," she warned me, like she always did. "Just try to relax." And then she noticed. I saw her eyes widen as she looked at my face. "Sarah," she said, her voice uncertain, Are you crying?" I was crying again, the tears I couldn't control, couldn't stop. The next morning, Nurse Leora walked in and said the 7 words that cracked the shell of my silence for the first time. "Elowen, did you just move your eyelid?" Her voice wasn't frightened or dramatic, just stunned, careful, almost disbelieving, like she wasn't sure if she had truly seen what she thought she'd seen. But I had moved. Not intentionally, not fully, not with control, but something inside me had twitched against the ocean of paralysis, and she had noticed. It was the first time since waking that anyone acknowledged even the possibility that I was still here. My heart slammed against my ribs, and the monitor betrayed my rising pulse. Leora leaned closer, squinting slightly, studying my face as if it were a puzzle she had been staring at for days without realizing the pieces already fit together. "Elowen, if you can hear me," she whispered, "try to blink once." Oh God, I tried. I threw every ounce of myself into that single command. Move, move, move. The eyelid barely fluttered, but it moved. Leora gasped, jerking back a step, her hand flying to her mouth as the truth settled in her eyes. "You're awake," she breathed. "You're conscious." She didn't run to tell anyone. She didn't call Caspian. Instead, she placed a gentle hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Don't worry, I'm right here. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." It was the first time since waking that I felt the tiniest spark of safety. Not enough to counter the nightmare, but enough to hope. Leora left only long enough to grab a letterboard and the neurologist on call, a man named Dr. Ren Suter, a thin, focused physician with deep-set eyes that missed nothing. He tested my eye movements, my reactions to light, my ability to track sound. Each tiny twitch of my gaze lit up his face like a scientist discovering proof of an impossible theory. Classic locked-in syndrome, he murmured. Full cognitive awareness, nearly complete physical paralysis. This changes everything. Yes, I thought, it changed everything. But not fast enough. Not before Caspian tried again. Dr. Suter left to schedule additional scans and neurological testing. Leora stayed with me, sitting beside my bed with the letterboard on her lap. "We can spell," she said. "Slowly, one section at a time. Blink when I hit the right group of letters." I blinked. She pointed. I blinked again. She narrowed. I blinked again. We worked like that for nearly an hour. My first word wasn't hello or help. It wasn't even alive. It was danger. Leora froze. Her eyes flicked from the board to my face. "You're in danger?" One blink. "Yes." "From who?" she whispered. My heart thudded. The letters came painstakingly. HUSBAND. Her breath caught. She stood so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "Elowen, what are you saying?" My eyelids trembled with effort. NOTACCIDENT. Leora went pale. She pressed a hand to her chest as if steadying herself. "Not an accident," she repeated. "Do you mean someone caused the crash?" One blink. "Caspian," she whispered. One blink. She sank into the chair, stunned, speechless. Minutes passed before she finally said, "We need proof." She stood abruptly, rummaging through the room until she found a spot, a small gap behind the plastic water pitcher on the bedside table. She slipped her phone back there, angling the microphone out toward the room. "I'm leaving this recording," she whispered. "If he says anything at all, we'll have it." She squeezed my hand gently, not expecting a squeeze back, but offering what comfort she could. "I'm right outside," she said. "I won't let him hurt you. Not again." She left, and I waited. Time crawled like something injured. The shadows in the room shifted as the sun slid lower. The sound of voices moved through the hallway. Every beep of the monitor sounded too loud. Somewhere around 6:50 p.m., footsteps approached. I knew the rhythm before the door even opened, Caspian, and beside him, the quiet, quick step of Maris. My pulse surged. The door swung open and the two of them entered with the same casualness someone might bring into a grocery store. "Evening," Caspian said softly, pretending to be tender, pretending for the benefit of whatever nurse might be nearby. He didn't know Leora was standing down the hall pretending to reorganize medication carts while straining to hear. He didn't know his voice was being recorded. He didn't know I could hear every word. "Doctor still says no change," Maris murmured. "One more week?" "No," Caspian said. "Sooner. I'm meeting with the neurologist tomorrow. If he confirms no meaningful activity, we move forward." "Good," Maris whispered. Then she laughed, a small bright sound that made bile burn in my throat. "When she's gone, everything is ours." Ours. Even now, even repeating the sentence, it felt unreal, like a hallucination shaped by betrayal, but it wasn't. He proved it seconds later. "The insurance pays out immediately," Caspian murmured. "The condo papers can be filed next month. Marble counters, just like you wanted." "We should travel," Maris said. "You promised me, Bora Bora." "We'll go," he said lightly. "Once this is finished." Finished, as if I were an errand, as if my death was a task he simply hadn't checked off his list yet. My pulse spiked so sharply the machine chirped an alarm. Maris glanced nervously at it. "She's doing that a lot," she whispered. "The spikes." "Just reflexes," Caspian said. "Her brain's gone. She can't hear us." Then he stepped closer, so close his breath brushed my cheek, and said, "You're almost free, Elowen." Free. He thought he was setting himself free. He didn't know the truth was already unraveling beneath him. He didn't know Leora was listening. He didn't know the recording was capturing every word. And he definitely didn't know what was about to happen next. 15 minutes later, they left, still talking casually about dinner plans and paint colors. The moment the door clicked shut, Leora slipped inside, grabbed the phone, and listened with headphones. Her face drained, then hardened. She stepped out, whispered something urgently to Dr. Suter, and the two of them disappeared down the hall. When they returned, Dr. Suter stood beside my bed, eyes blazing with purpose. "Elowen," he said. "We heard everything. The police are on their way." My heart hammered. Relief flooded me so violently I thought I might faint, even though my body couldn't. I had been trapped, silenced, counted as dead, but now the truth was awake. And soon, Caspian would be too. Only this time, he would wake up to consequences. Dr. Suter's words echoed in my mind. The police are on their way, and for the first time since I clawed my way back into consciousness, I felt something close to power. Thin, fragile, trembling, but real. A power built not from muscles or movement, but from truth, from proof, from finally being believed. Leora squeezed my hand gently, her voice low. "You're safe now, Elowen. We're not letting him near you again. If I could have sobbed, I would have. I felt the tears anyway, burning hot against my cheeks as she wiped them away with a tenderness that made my chest ache. She stayed with me until she absolutely had to step out to speak to hospital security. And even then, she kept glancing back at me as if making sure I wouldn't fade. I didn't fade. I couldn't. Not now. Time shifted strangely then, both fast and slow, as more people hurried in and out of the room. Hospital security positioned themselves outside my door. A second neurologist arrived to verify my consciousness and examine me. A resident checked the ventilator settings. Someone else brought in new monitors and plugged them in. The sterile quiet of the ICU had transformed into a kind of organized storm. Beneath it all, I waited, listening, terrified that Caspian would show up before the police. He didn't, but his sister did. Leora must have called her because 20 minutes later a woman burst into the room so abruptly the door slammed against the wall. She was tall, with sharp features, and eyes so much like Caspian's that for a moment cold dread shot through me until I saw her expression. Shock, horror, fury. "Elowen," she whispered, choking on my name as she rushed to my bedside. Oh my God, what did he do to you?" This was Rowan Ward, Caspian's older sister. I had always liked her. She was blunt, straightforward, the kind of woman who saw through lies instantly. If I'd had the ability to choose anyone from Caspian's family to hear the truth first, it would have been her. Leora stepped in quickly. "She's conscious. Locked-in syndrome. She can communicate by blinking." Rowan let out a sharp, broken sound, part gasp, part sob. "Elowen, blink if you can hear me." One blink. Her face crumpled. She pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming freely. I knew something was off. I knew it. He's been different, secretive, cold, almost eager for updates. I asked him yesterday why he looked so... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Leora's jaw tightened. "She told us what happened," she said softly. "It wasn't an accident. He tampered with her brakes." Rowan's whole body went still. Then the fury hit. Not loud, not wild, cold, razor-sharp fury that sliced clean through the room. "I'm going to kill him," she whispered. "I'm going to—" "Rowan," Leora cut in gently. "The police will handle it." Rowan dragged a trembling hand through her hair. "Does Mom know? Should I call her?" Leora shook her head. "Not yet. The officers will want statements from immediate family, but we need to keep things controlled until they arrive. We can't risk warning him." Warning him. The words hung heavily between us. What none of them knew, what I knew, was that Caspian had a habit of reading Rowan's emotions before she even said a word. If she called him now, even pretending to be casual, he'd sense something was wrong immediately. He was good at that. He'd always been good at that. Too good. Rowan stayed, pacing the small area beside my bed in sharp, quick movements, muttering things under her breath that I couldn't quite make out. Leora stayed too, half guarding me, half guarding Rowan from doing something impulsive. And then 22 minutes after Rowan arrived, though it felt like an hour, the police stepped into the room. 2 detectives, both in plain clothes, a man in his late 40s with a calm, unreadable face, and a younger woman with sharp observation in her eyes, Detective Langford and Detective Mira. Leora briefed them quickly, handing over the phone with the recording. They listened right there in the room. They listened to Caspian's voice. They listened to Maris giggle. They listened to every damning word. Rowan's hands balled into shaking fists as the recording played. Leora's jaw locked so tightly I thought she might crack a tooth. Detective Langford's expression didn't change, but Detective Mira's eyes went ice cold. When the recording stopped, Langford tucked the phone into an evidence bag. "We'll get a warrant," he said. "We'll bring him in today." "Where is he right now?" Rowan answered before anyone else. "At work, probably." "He said he had a meeting at Mason and Field Financial." Mira scribbled quickly into her notebook. "We'll check. Miss Ward, Miss Hale, we'll need statements. For now, no one contacts him. No signals, no warnings. Leora nodded. Rowan nodded. I blinked once. The detectives left. Security tightened even more. Rowan squeezed my shoulder gently. I'm not leaving you, she whispered. Not until he's in cuffs. It should have made me feel safe. It did. But it also made my stomach twist with a new fear, because the detectives hadn't been gone 5 minutes when the door opened again. Slowly, quietly, too quietly, and then he stepped in. Caspian. My husband. The man planning my death. The man who thought I was gone already. He shouldn't have been there. The detectives should have intercepted him. Security should have stopped him. But he stepped into the room like it was any other day, like he still had time left to finish the job. Rowan froze. Leora's eyes widened. My heart monitor spiked so violently the machine shrieked. Caspian glanced at it, then at me, then at Rowan, confusion spreading across his face, confusion that shifted quickly into suspicion. What's going on? He asked slowly, and then his eyes narrowed. Why are there guards outside? Why is she... He stopped, stared, looked from Rowan's expression to Leora's stance to my eyes flicking rapidly with panic, and then something in his face changed, a tightening, a recognition, a flicker of fear. He knew. Somehow, instantly, he knew. Rowan stepped between him and my bed. Don't take another step, she said, her voice trembling with fury. You monster! Caspian's gaze sharpened like a blade. What did you do? He whispered. Not to Rowan, to me. And then the hall erupted with footsteps as security and the detectives rushed back into the room. Caspian Ward, Detective Mira said sharply, don't move. For the first time since the crash, since the betrayal, since the nightmare began, I saw fear flash across his face. Real fear, not for me, for himself. And for the first time, I knew without question he was about to lose everything. Everything he tried to steal. Everything he thought was already his. Everything he said he'd own once I was gone. And I wasn't gone. I was right here, watching, listening, surviving. Detective Mira moved first, swift, commanding, stepping between Caspian and my bed, with the calm authority of someone who had seen men like him try to bluff their way out of a burning building they themselves had set. Caspian Ward, she repeated, you are detained pending investigation. Put your hands where I can see them. Caspian didn't move. His eyes darted wildly between Rowan, the detectives, the security guards, and finally me. Always me. He looked at me with something twisted. An expression I had never seen before, even in the weeks of whispered betrayal. Not guilt, not remorse, not even panic. It was calculation. Cold, feral calculation. What did you tell them? He asked softly, as if I might answer. As if I could. Rowan snapped back immediately. She didn't need to tell us anything. You and your little side project did that all by yourselves. Maris, his mistress, his partner in planning my death, his future co-owner of everything that would have been left behind, Caspian's jaw clenched. Rowan, you don't understand. No, she spat. I understand perfectly. I knew you were selfish. I knew you were reckless. But murder? Your own wife? She was shaking now, her fury shaking with her. What is wrong with you? Caspian's mask finally cracked. A muscle in his cheek twitched as he glanced again at the detectives. I want a lawyer. You'll get one, Detective Langford said flatly, gesturing to the security officers. Turn around. But Caspian didn't. He hesitated too long, and that hesitation set every nerve in the room on edge. Security stepped forward. Detective Mira stepped forward. Rowan instinctively reached toward me, blocking part of his line of sight as if she could shield me from him physically. And that was when Caspian suddenly lunged. Not at me, but toward the door. The move was so sharp and desperate, it didn't even look like him. But he didn't get far. Security caught him within seconds, slamming him against the wall so hard a framed medical poster rattled. Get off me! He snarled, struggling, twisting. I didn't do anything. That sentence alone would have been laughable if it weren't so grotesque. Mira moved closer, her expression flat and icy. We heard your conversation, she said. We heard every word of you discussing insurance payouts, death, freedom, and how everything would be yours. Would you like to hear it played back? Caspian stopped thrashing. His face drained of color. Not because he doubted the recording existed. He knew exactly what he'd said. His fear came from realizing how stupid he'd been to say it at all. Take him, Mira ordered, and they did. They dragged him out of the room while he shouted my name, not in affection or fear for me, but as an accusation. As if I had betrayed him, as if I had wronged him. You think you'll get out of this? he screamed down the hallway. "You think anyone will believe you? You think—" The elevator doors cut him off, swallowing his voice. Silence followed, heavy, thick, unreal. Rowan sagged against the visitor's chair, her legs shaking so hard she had to grip the armrest to steady herself. Leora rushed to my side, checking my vitals, adjusting the head of the bed, wiping sweat I couldn't feel from my forehead. "He's gone," she whispered. "He can't hurt you anymore." But something inside me didn't unclench. Not yet, not fully, because Maris was still out there, and people like Caspian didn't plan alone. Rowan lifted her head slowly, her voice hoarse. "I want to see the full recording," she said. "Every second," Detective Mira nodded. "After we process it, you can." Rowan turned to me then, her eyes bright with a storm of fury and grief. "Eloan, I swear to you," she said softly, "I won't let him come near you again, and I will make sure he pays for everything he's done." I blinked once. She nodded as if she understood the depth behind it, but as the detectives stepped out, speaking quietly into their radios, Leora glanced toward the door with a frown. "We should still be careful," she murmured. Rowan stiffened. "Why? He's in custody." "Yes," Leora said, "but Maris isn't, and if she knows enough about what they were planning—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Rowan moved instantly to the window, checking the hallway, scanning the parking lot below. Leora shut the blinds just enough to obscure my room from outside view. The monitor beeped a steady rhythm. Too fast. Too anxious, but steady enough to keep me grounded. Safe. Safer, at least. The sun dipped lower, the warm glow shifting into a deep orange that cast long shadows across the room. Rowan's phone buzzed. She checked it, face scrunching. "It's Mom," she whispered. "She's asking if Caspian came by the house." Leora frowned. "Why would he?" Rowan typed quickly, then hesitated. I should call her, but I don't know what to say." Leora rested a hand gently on her arm. "Tell her the truth. Not everything, not yet, but tell her Caspian is in police custody and that investigators will speak to her soon." Rowan swallowed hard and stepped out into the hallway. Leora stayed behind, sitting near my bed, her eyes soft and steady. "Eloan," she said in a low voice, "you're going to have a long road of therapy and care. But you're already doing more than most patients with this condition ever manage. You blinked purposefully. You communicated. You saved yourself." Save myself. It felt unreal to hear it. True, but unreal. She leaned closer. "Can you try again? Blink once if you're comfortable. Twice if you're in pain." I blinked once. She smiled gently. "Good, you're safe now." But even as she said it, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Fast, urgent, not police, not security. Rowan reappeared in the doorway, pale as chalk. "Leora," she whispered. "Detectives just called." Leora stood up instantly. "What happened?" Rowan swallowed hard. "Maris is gone." Leora's brow knitted. "Gone?" Rowan nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "She cleared out her apartment, cleared her desk at work, left her phone behind." A beat of silence, heavy, cold. Rowan finished in a whisper meant only for us. "And her car is missing." My heart monitor spiked. Leora's eyes widened, because we all knew what that meant. Caspian was caught, but Maris, the woman who whispered death like a love language, was still out there, and she might already know everything was falling apart, and if she did, then she only needed to finish one thing to protect them both, me. The news about Maris hit me harder than I expected. Even though I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't run or fight, my mind raced. I could see it clearly, her face, the slick, cunning grin that had haunted every conversation she'd had with Caspian. She had been the one to convince him to act faster, to make sure everything he planned could happen before I had a chance to defend myself. And now she was gone, vanished. No forwarding address, no note, nothing. Leora was at my side, scanning the hallway and peeking into the nurse's station. Rowan was on her phone again, typing furiously. "I called the police," she said. "They're sending a team to track her car, check surveillance footage from every possible camera on her route home, on the highway, everywhere. But it's a lot to cover in real time. She could be anywhere by now." I could feel the panic clawing at my chest. Maris had the same goal Caspian had, get rid of me. They both thought I was a nuisance, a liability, a barrier to what they wanted. Everything. "Do we know anyone she might contact?" Leora asked. Rowan shook her head. "She's clever. She doesn't leave a trail, not one we can see yet. But the police said they'll dig through her accounts, her emails, her credit cards, see if she's planning anything." They're treating it as an active risk. My mind went to my parents, my sister, my friends, everyone who'd been keeping vigil for me for weeks. If Maris acted, she wouldn't just go for me. She'd want to scare anyone standing in Caspian's way, anyone who had witnessed what he did, anyone who might testify. My heart pounded faster. "We can't wait," Rowan said, her voice low, tense. "I want to know what she's planning. We need to anticipate her next move." Leora nodded, frowning. "The tricky part is that Maris isn't just a sidekick. She's smart. She knows how to manipulate, how to hide. She has time to plan while we're figuring out the basics, and she's probably thinking she has the moral high ground. Avenging Caspian. To her, we're the villains for getting in the way." Rowan's fingers flew over her phone. "I called everyone on the team. Security, forensics, police liaisons. We're putting together a map of her known locations, checking everything from her favorite coffee shops to friends she talks to online. But even with all that, she's one step ahead." Leora leaned close to my bed. "Elowen, you saved yourself before. You communicated. You let them know you were conscious. And that's why Caspian's locked up. But Maris, she's dangerous in a different way. We have to be smart, careful, and you have to stay calm." Calm. How could I be calm when someone was out there who had helped plan my murder, who might think it was her right, her duty, to finish what they started? I wanted to scream, to move, to strike. I wanted her to feel the same terror I'd felt for weeks in the hospital bed, but I couldn't. So I blinked once. Leora smiled faintly. "Good, focus on that. You're safe here. They can't get to you without leaving traces, and we have people watching every entrance. We'll make sure nothing happens while we figure this out." Rowan glanced at her watch. "The police said they're sending a team to the surveillance networks in 5 minutes. Cameras in parking garages, streets, toll booths. Anything she touches, they'll trace it. But they need me to go with them. To access certain accounts, only I can. I'll be back in a couple of hours." "Stay safe," Leora said. Rowan nodded and left, the door clicking softly behind her. The room felt suddenly empty, heavy with anticipation, fear, and tension. I could hear every step in the hallway, every soft murmur from the nurses. The air itself seemed charged, waiting for the next move. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe slowly, systematically. Panic wasn't going to help me. Not now, not ever. I had survived Caspian. I would survive Maris. My thoughts were interrupted by the soft knock at the door. "Room 402, a voice asked. It was unfamiliar, sharp, authoritative. I blinked once. Leora was already on her feet. The nurse in the doorway held a small tablet. "I'm Officer Darnell," she said, "Portland PD. I'm here to brief you and your team on Maris Stanton. We have some updates." Leora motioned for her to come in, and the officer stepped inside, standing near my bed. Her eyes swept the room, careful, scanning, assessing. "We've located her car," Officer Darnell said, holding up the tablet. "It was abandoned at a truck stop outside of Eugene. Gas tank half full. All personal items gone. We don't know where she went. But the location is a starting point." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Eugene was 2 hours away. She could be anywhere by now. "We're increasing patrols," Darnell continued. "Air support is on standby. All highways leading north and south are being monitored. She could be trying to flee the state, maybe even the country, but every airport and bus station has alerts. We'll catch her." Rowan's voice cut through the tension as she re-entered, face pale but determined. "The police have asked for full access to her phone records, emails, social media. They want to know every person she's contacted in the last month, every message sent or received. If she's plotting, we'll know who she's in communication with." I blinked once. Good. That was the first real sense of control I'd had since Caspian's confession. Leora nodded at me, eyes steady. "You can rest now. We have eyes on everything. You've done enough already." But even as she spoke, my mind raced. Maris had been the one whispering, encouraging, planning, guiding Caspian. Without her, he might have been reckless, but together they were lethal. Now only one remained free. I couldn't help but imagine her steps, careful, measured, looking over her shoulder, every thought about eliminating me layered with precision. The thought made my fingers twitch, even if I couldn't move them. Officer Darnell glanced at me, then back at Leora. She knows everything about Caspian's plan, everything about the insurance, the accounts, the assets. She's the one who would finish what Caspian started. She could have the keys, passwords, access. If she acts quickly, she could still make it seem like it's legal. Clean. We won't let that happen, Leora said firmly. We're staying one step ahead. We're not letting her get the jump on us. Officer Darnell nodded, tapping her tablet. We've already frozen some accounts, monitored transfers, alerted banks. If she tries to move any money, we'll know instantly. Rowan rejoined us, holding a laptop. We can access all her social media and email history, all of Caspian's records, all account logs. We'll see if she's planning a trip, trying to contact anyone, anything, no stone unturned. I blinked twice, signaling I understood and appreciated her effort. Leora's hand rested on mine. Good, focus on breathing, stay calm. The next few hours are critical, but we're not alone. You're not alone. The room fell quiet, filled with tension, the quiet hum of monitors, and the faint sound of the hospital beyond our walls. Each tick of the clock seemed louder than the last. Every soft sound in the hallway made me jump, and then the phone rang. Rowan answered immediately, her face going pale. She motioned to Leora and Officer Darnell. It's the PD. They found her. My heart leapt, then stopped. Where? I blinked once. Rowan held up the phone. They tracked her to a safe house on the outskirts of Salem, alone, no one with her. Police are moving in now. They want us to stay put. Leora's eyes softened briefly, reassuring me. Stay here. You've done enough. Let them handle this. I blinked once, slowly, deliberately. Good. Let them handle it. But I could feel the tension, the danger, the lingering threat of Maris, the one who had whispered death and manipulation, the one who might still believe that when I was gone, everything would be hers. And that thought made my heart pound with a mixture of fear, rage, and determination. I was alive, and I wasn't going anywhere. Not today, not ever. By the time the police reached Maris Stanton's safe house, I felt a strange mix of dread and anticipation. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, but my mind was alive, burning with every detail, every whisper I had ever heard from Caspian, and now from Maris herself. Leora, Rowan, and Officer Darnell were at my side, their focus absolute, a shield around me while the world outside seemed poised to explode. Rowan's hands flew over the laptop as she coordinated with officers, giving precise locations, sending directions, confirming timing. The tension was almost unbearable. The silence in my hospital room broken only by the hum of the monitors and the faint rustle of papers as Leora organized my charts, kept my vitals steady, kept me grounded. Then the phone rang again. Rowan answered immediately, her face tight with focus, her voice low but excited. They've got visual confirmation. Maris is inside. Alone, no signs of forced entry yet. Police are moving to surround the property. I blinked twice. Good. Every detail mattered. Every second was crucial. I knew Maris was cunning. I knew she had helped orchestrate Caspian's plan and could easily slip away if we hesitated. But now, the authorities had her, cornered. Leora leaned close, whispering in my ear, "You did it. You survived, Caspian, and now Maris is caught. You've done everything you could. Breathe. Let this end." I blinked once. Slow, deliberate, yes. Let it end. I had survived the attempted murder, survived 2 weeks of terror while my body was trapped. And now, with careful orchestration and vigilance, we were about to stop the final piece of the puzzle. Rowan's fingers flew as she sent last-minute instructions to the police, detailing entrances, exit points, and security systems. Officer Darnell stayed close, phone in hand, confirming every step. Minutes passed like hours, each one stretching, heavy with the weight of possibility. Then the first officer entered the safe house and signaled the rest. They moved quickly, silently, every action precise. Through the monitors, Rowan could see Maris pacing inside, unaware, thinking she was untouchable. And then, the police were inside. She tried to flee, but the exits were blocked. The officers restrained her, cuffed her, and read her rights. The shock registered on her face immediately, and I could almost feel her panic through the tension in the air. The threat she had posed, the danger that had loomed over me, over my family, over everyone Caspian and Maris had intended to manipulate, was neutralized. Rowan relayed everything to me, her voice steady but full of relief. "She's in custody. She's not going anywhere. You're safe, Elowen, truly safe." Leora squeezed my hand, the warmth of her palm grounding me in reality. The fear, the tension, the months of planning, the whispers of betrayal, they were all over. Maris could do nothing now. Caspian was in prison, Maris was caught, and I remained alive. Fully, painfully alive. I blinked once, slow and deliberate, and let the weight of the moment sink in. The hospital room, once a prison, now felt like a sanctuary. Every sound, the hum of the machines, the soft murmur of nurses outside, was proof that I had survived, that despite everything, despite betrayal, despite near death, I had endured. Later, the police debriefed us. They confirmed that Maris had attempted to transfer funds from Caspian's accounts, attempt access to sensitive documents, and even plan contingencies to bypass legal barriers. Every step she had taken was intercepted. The evidence was overwhelming, airtight, and the legal team assured us that she would face serious charges for conspiracy, fraud, and any other crimes linked to her facilitation of Caspian's plan. My mind whirled with thoughts, flashes of the 2-week nightmare, every cruel whisper, every plot laid bare. But alongside that, there was a clarity I hadn't felt since waking up. I had survived, and I would continue to survive. Leora and Rowan stayed with me as the police finalized the reports, took statements, and secured all evidence. The room felt alive again, charged not with fear, but with a sense of victory, of justice, of closure. I blinked once at Leora. She smiled softly. "You were brilliant, Elowen. You stayed calm, you gave us the information we needed, and you let your instinct guide you. That's why this ended this way." I blinked twice, slow, deliberate, letting the acknowledgement sink in. I had survived, not just physically, but strategically, not just by chance, but because I had remained aware, conscious, and vigilant. Officer Darnell turned to me one last time before leaving. "We'll process the charges, and Maris will be held without bail pending trial. You're safe now, truly safe. There's nothing she can do to harm you anymore, and—" I blinked once. Yes, safe. The word echoed in my mind, a balm over the lingering trauma. Leora adjusted the blankets around me, steadying my body, my trembling, my frazzled nerves. "Focus on recovery now," she said gently. "Everything else, legal, security, the fallout, can be handled without you having to fight it directly. You've already done your part. Now it's time to heal." And that was the truth. I had done everything I could. I had survived Caspian's calculated cruelty, Maris's manipulation, and the months of planning they had laid against me. I had been conscious, aware, and unbroken, and now the final threat had been neutralized. In the days that followed, the trial preparations began for Maris. I communicated through my computer, slowly typing every detail I had witnessed, every plan she had discussed with Caspian, every nuance of the conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming. Her guilt was clear. There was no way she could deny it, and every word I typed, every sentence I constructed was a testament to my survival, to my strength, to the resilience I had found within myself. My parents, who had flown back immediately, stayed with me during this period. They were careful, protective, loving. They held my hands during briefings, read transcripts aloud to me, made sure I knew they were present and would fight with me every step of the way. My sister, too, stayed close, offering quiet encouragement, laughter, and strength. Leora and Rowan became more than protectors. They were family, constant and steadfast, ensuring that I could focus on healing and surviving the trauma I had endured. And slowly, with effort, with therapy, and with the relentless support of those who truly cared, I began to regain more movement. Fingers twitched, toes flexed, subtle but unmistakable signs that I was not only alive, but returning to my body, returning to the world I had been robbed of. When the day of Maris's trial came, I was ready. I entered the courtroom with my family by my side, typing my testimony through my speech computer, recounting every detail of her involvement, every plot, every whispered plan. The jury listened, captivated, horrified, and by the end the verdict was swift and decisive, guilty on all counts. The judge handed down a sentence that reflected the severity of her crimes, a decade in prison, a warning to anyone who would ever think to harm another for selfish gain. As the gavel struck, I felt a weight lift off my chest, a release of tension that had gripped me for months. The nightmare was finally over. Caspian, Maris, the manipulation, the betrayal, it was all behind me. I was free. I was alive. I had survived. And now, for the first time in weeks, I could breathe without fear, sleep without panic, and look forward without dread. The final act of that terrible 2-week ordeal had been played, and I had emerged not just alive, but victorious. In the following months, I rebuilt my life with intention and care. Therapy became my anchor, my family, my support. Friends, old and new, became my community. I returned to teaching, gradually at first, then full-time, reclaiming the part of my life that Caspian and Maris had tried to steal. Every lesson, every interaction, every moment of laughter and learning became a victory. I traveled, reconnected with old passions, and allowed myself to feel joy without guilt, without fear, without hesitation. And whenever I thought of Caspian or Maris, I remembered the power of awareness, the strength of vigilance, and the resilience of a survivor. I had been trapped, helpless, silenced, but never truly defeated. I was alive. I was thriving. I was free. And every day that passed, I celebrated that fact, living fully, fearlessly, and unbroken.